We had a few technical problems shooting this video, resulting in poor audio and poor camera placement. Still better than watching the BBC though. Never work with children, animals or kings. We're now recording. Oh. What are these flats?
I don't know. That's Cardonald, Bellahouston. These flats were all, mainly built in the 60s when Glasgow was clearing loads of tenements and putting people into tour blocks. And the supposed attraction was there were going to be communities in the sky, and each apartment had its own toilets.
But they've not worn well, have they?
No, I think some have better than others. The shorter ones. I mean, there are quite a lot of flats, tower flats in Glasgow and elsewhere that are still sought after. On the left there is the Southern General Hospital, where half the city was born.
The grey building?
Yeah, it's been rebuilt at enormous expense.
When was that refurbished or rebuilt?
About 5 or 6 years ago.
Oh, quite recently then.
Parts of the old hospital are there.
And what are they going to do with that?
Oh, it's still use.
But have they got plans to make it into apartments like they seem to be doing with a lot of hospitals?
I don't think so, because there's still departments there.
In sunny Derby they're turning the old infirmary into flats.
Right.
Yeah, it's a lovely structure.
I'll show you some flats. In fact, we'll go up there. So this is the Clyde Tunnel.
And is this in lieu of a bridge?
Yeah, this was built 60 years ago. Actually in lieu of a ferry.
And where have we popped out?
This is Broomhill leading to Annie's Land Cross. And there's a tower block at Annie's Land Cross where there's a waiting list for flats.
Is it a desirable area?
It's so popular. Annie's Land's okay, yeah, but the flats are very popular. And they are the first tower block to become a listed building in Scotland. I think there are similar listed tower blocks in London.
But that's not Annie's Land, that's not the flats you're talking about.
That's them.
That is the one?
That is, yep.
And what are they called, do you know?
I think that is called something like Annie's Land Tower. Jordan Hill is an area of the West End where people move in order to get into the catchment area of the local high school.
But it's not quite the West End.
It's expensive, but it's more suburban than the West End.
Is the West End about the most expensive area of town?
Of the actual city, probably. Yeah, I mean, further out there are expensive suburbs to the north and south.
That's worn well, that tower block.
Yes, I think it's nearly 60 years old, but it's listed, and a lot of the apartments are masonettes, as you can probably see.
Well, I was discussing masonettes with Andy, and I thought a masonette meant you had your own door to it on a flat.
No.
No?
A maisonette has 2 levels. Typical tower block of maisonettes will have walkways and then 2
Is it a whole block of masonettes?
I'm not sure. Bearsden was built by John Lawrence. John Lawrence, post-war, built a huge number of houses all in an identical way. John Lawrence was better known at the time as the owner of Rangers Football Club. I don't know if you've heard of them, but
I'm aware of them.
they're on the south side of Glasgow. And John Lawrence Homes owned Rangers as well as building houses.
And what period was this?
I think, what, the Rangers or the houses?
The houses.
The houses were all built, well, I think he started building in the 1930s. So they were built 30s, 40s, 50s mainly.
And his area was mostly Bearsden?
Yeah. But you can always tell a John Lawrence house because of the style of them. You can go and have a look if you want.
I'm happy to look at anything, you know, mate.
He owned Rangers from certainly during the 60s and 70s and 80s. John Lawrence's descendants sold Rangers to David Murray in 1988.
Oh, was this as late as 88?
Yeah. They hired Graham Souness to be manager in 86.
And then he started bringing all the English players in?
Yeah. Partly because the English clubs were banned from Europe at the time.
Yes.
And so obviously players like Terry Butcher and others were attracted to Rangers because of the prospect of European football.
Those two matches in Europe every year. This is Dewsholme Park. Is it not?
What park? Dawsholme.
Dawsholme Park.
Yeah, maybe.
This is where I was lost on Saturday.
Alright. This isn't part of Glasgow I know well. I know it moderately.
Yes, because that's the veterinarian school, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Down there.
Glasgow Estate. These are Lawrence Homes.
And these are all his style that he built
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
They're all stucco.
Yep.
Were all his houses stucco?
Yep.
Oh, I don't like it, but
They were all white.
Pebble Dash stucco as well. Oh dear. What sort of level of houses were they?
A lot of them had, well, in those days had steel window frames, you know, that kind of thing.
What were they perceived as? Were they perceived as a middle class house?
Yeah, it was a middle class house for the new middle class in the new suburbs. Bearsden was a new suburb. They were affordable. You could adapt them, as you'll see. Quite a lot are extended and both up the way and out the way. So yeah, they were for aspiring middle class people. I'm bored with Bearsden. We're not even
That's
there
enough,
yet.
was it?
We're not even there yet. Oh, yeah, just pull out. It's the Bearsden way.
Are these all Lang's homes as well?
Can't see them too well.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think they are. Anything that, you know, anything whose design goes back to that time is a Lawrence home. Obviously there's more modern houses being built. Yeah, they're Lawrence homes. That kind of very, you know, bungalows, 2 up, 2 down, semi-detached, pre and post-war style, brick build. So if you turn left here, you'd be in Maryhill, but you've been there.
Yeah. Merry Hill's not the prettiest of places. The main road back into town's not anyway.
Yeah. No, nobody would describe Merry Hill as pretty.
No.
I mean, Glasgow's not a pretty city. It's got sort of fine Victorian architecture and interesting stonework, but it sprawls a little. It's not very high rise. It's, you know, it speaks of its history. It's a working city.
Yeah, but there's a huge amount of tenements. Just
Yeah.
blocks and blocks of it.
Well, there were many more. Many more.
Did they keep the best ones, or did they just clear out all the...
They lost quite a lot of good ones, but yeah, they tend to have kept the best ones because the whole-scale demolition that was going on in the 60s and 70s came to a shuddering halt, partly because people were being moved out to peripheral housing estates that had very few facilities, and there was quite a rebellion about the breaking up of communities, and partly because people saw value in restructuring tenements. So famously in Denniston, the first housing association was founded, and they started converting tiny flats into larger flats within the existing tenement buildings, which made them much more attractive to live in.
So they were using what they've got to give a better experience,
Yeah.
and better living conditions.
Yeah, so the demolition of Duke Street in Denniston came to a halt to the west of Park End, which is why we still have tenements in Denniston.
Well, Denniston's quite a sought-after area, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Not all of it, but large parts of it. And then these tenements here are quite grand, really. You look at the stonework and
they would they have been grand at the time?
yeah.
So they were the more affluent people.
Yeah.
But there were tenement blocks like that everywhere. There's just...
Well, the city population hugely expanded after the Industrial Revolution, so there was real pressure to build homes for workers and for managers and all the people that flooded into the city from the Scottish Highlands and from Ireland and from rural Scotland. And the city was a huge industrial base. It was the second biggest city in the UK. It was a major trading point across the Atlantic, in the same way as Liverpool and Bristol.
With the housing though, was it a case of you had the localised large population of housing around where the localised industries were?
Yeah, to a large extent. So a lot of the housing on either side of the river would relate, for example, to shipbuilding, which was an enormous industry in Glasgow for a long time.
When did that actually end? When did the last shipyard close?
Well, there are still two shipyards in Glasgow. Guffin Shipyard, they're both owned by British Aerospace, and they both make warships.
Right, I didn't know that.
Guffin and Scotstoun. Yeah, they're making frigates at the moment. So if you can imagine, on either side of the river, there was a shipyard after shipyard all the way from the centre of the city, just west of Central Station, out to Clydebank, which is the first town to the west of Glasgow.
Well, they were all along the bank.
It was all shipbuilding, so only one left on the south side of the river is what used to be Guffin Shipyard, which was originally Fairfields and was the centre of the Upper Clyde shipbuilders.
I walked past Fairfields and wondered what it was because it's a huge block. But are they still working?
Yeah, they're that block that you're talking about includes quite a few things. There's workspaces for other industries. There's a museum.
Yeah, there's a heritage centre, isn't there, Fairfields? Yeah.
And there's still part of BAE as it is now. And in the north side at Scotstoun is the other part of BAE. So both those yards make warships mainly for the Ministry of Defence.
All for the UK? Or do they do it for other countries?
At the moment, yes, but they have made ships for other countries in the past.
That's Adele Park, is it? Edel Park?
Yeah. A mixture of council-owned. That building over there makes periscopes for submarines, sights for tanks.
But for instance, these tenements, would these be rented, do you think?
A lot of these are by either private rented or owned by the council.
Well, the council own the tenements,
Yeah.
not just the newer stuff, they own the older tenements.
Yeah, and some will be owner occupied as well. So on the left along here is what's left of Guffin Shipyard. So they're still making bits of ships behind those walls.
And are you launching them
These big
when they're
ships.
finished and they're still going down the Clyde?
Yeah. Well, bits of them. What they tend to do now is make large ships in sections, and then so the aircraft carriers were partly built there, but they were all assembled at Rosyth, which is near Edinburgh, and that's the original Fairfields offices, which are very grand, wood panelled.
You've been inside?
Yeah. So you were here earlier. This is Guffin Cross Shopping Centre. What a fine place.
Yeah, I shot the Barbara Mould sculpture, the MP who was with the rent rise.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember her name.
She wasn't an MP, I don't think. Now that you've got her name wrong, I can't remember the right version.
Sure it's not Barbara. Mary Barber.
Mary Barbara. You were close, Barbara Mull.
Well, yeah. What do you expect?
Have you been in the subway?
Not this. No, I think I've only been. No, not this time. 2 years ago.
Yeah. It's always an experience. Usually a good one.
Yeah, it's. Have they updated the actual carriages because they were somewhat
They're
old?
They're unique.
Well, that's a term you can use.
I think they have been updating them actually. They've been updating the stations. Hill Head's very nice station. Where we go now? We could still go to Greenock.
Each year I think it's impossible for the King's outrageous generosity and kindness to increase. Yet each year he surpasses himself. Thanks very much, mate. You're a superstar.